So this brings back some memories. These Bellcrank molds. Got 5 of them here. I'm going to wax them up. And these Bellcrank molds weren't rubber. They were hard. They were little bricks I made. And you could probably get them machined out of aluminum, but I'll tell you what, save yourself the money if you're going to make them, and then go ahead and just cast them. That'll be another video, how to make the molds and the master. So what I'm doing here is putting just mold release wax in here. The wax is this AdTech MR1. It's like wallpaper paste, you know, when you mix. I don't know if you've ever done that before, but it's very thin. It's not a waxy. It's almost it's hard to describe, but I think AdTech MR1, it was something else. I can't remember. There's a guy on the internet that was making an airplane, full-size airplane fuselage and cowl and stuff, and he was using this stuff to wax these plugs, and it was called something else, but it's I think AdTech, which is out of business now as far as I can tell. Probably repackaged it. I'd have to do a little research to find it, but I love this stuff. I mean, it's worked so good for me for this application. So on these Bellcrank molds, it's actually a hard mold waxed, and then it's PVA'd. And these pins go inside these brass tubes, and the brass tubes don't run all the way to the top of this mold. It probably goes within 1/8 or 1/4, and then it's the composite casting. So if you wax it and you get a little bit of wax down in those holes, you just run the pin through there, clean the pin. And this pin, it's not music wire, it's oil hardening drill rod. And the reason being is because if you ever run a micrometer across music wire, it'll vary 0.5 of a thousandths, or it used to, maybe more or less now, but you could never use it to actually make a mold because it would lock itself in there. So I always use oil hardening drill rod, and when I was doing these things, I'd have 12 of these molds set up, and I'd make a dozen at a time. So wax 12, buff 12, PVA 12, mold 12, demold 12, and then I'd stick to the same operation, you know, as I went through the process, so I wasn't jumping back and forth between all the different steps, which made it somewhat bearable for a little while. And it's time consuming. It's you could get these things probably in some kind of production process, but the trouble with that is wouldn't be worthwhile. Couldn't sell enough of them, even though you can sell a handful, but and that was true to a lot of stuff in modeling. The volume wasn't there, and it's really not there now. So this is just a paper towel. I like this stuff because it doesn't disintegrate. This is a blue shop towel. It's sort of a cross between paper towel and a rag. So like here, you can see I rubbed a little wax down this hole right here. And just pop the wax out. So when I spray the PVA in these molds, I'll have the pins in there, but these pins will be pulled back to where they're flush with the surface of the inside of that mold, about right there. And then when I spray the PVA in there, before I push it all the way through to make the part, I'll twist it and then push it so it breaks the PVA and doesn't peel it loose. and the pins never get PVA on them. So when this thing's being molded, I take these pins and I wax them really well. And I've got little 90 degrees bent on them so I can pull them out. You just wax the pin really well. Insert the pin and run it up past, so when you actually mold it, you're wrapping around. This is the center pin here. This center pin is drill rod also, but it's backed with a piece of brass here. And the reason being, that's how you demold it. So on the bottom of this mold, that's an 1/8 inch ID. And this goes in there. And then the bushing slides over the top of this post, and it's countersunk down in this mold. So when you mold the Bellcrank, you're molding that oil-like bushing into the mold. And then you put a plate on. That's all be described in another video, but I'll just go over it now quick. So to demold this thing, there's a plate here and you clamp it. What you do is you pull the pins out first. You twist and pull, and all the 3 pins would come out plus the post. This would come out. And then you'd take this drill rod, which is the same OD as the OD of the bushing you just molded in there, and you insert that in there. It's not that one, I think it's this one. You gotta find it, but I think it was this one. Nope. There it is, it's this one. So this is just a piece of music wire, and this goes in the tube, and what'll happen, it'll hit that bushing that's sticking up. So this is the OD of the oil-light bushing, and as you drive that up, you just tap it and it'll pop the part out. That's how you release the Bellcrank from the mold. And there's a draft angle here, so it's not locked in mechanically. It's got an angle all the way around. And just tap, the part pops out, and once you get the part out of the mold, then it's time to take the flash off. You take a carbide tool or Dremel or something, you run it around there and clean the flash off, sand it, sand the back, and then you're good to go. Except for you got to put a bushing in here for a push rod, but I think a lot of the guys back then, or even now, were using ball links, so it didn't have to be bushed. It was bushed, but they just run a 440 through there. They've always had PVA in them, and really they look as good as they did the day I molded them. I think if I would have skipped the PVA and tried to work on some other kind of mold release, I'd have regretted it. The longevity of the molds wouldn't have been there. So it really pays off the PVA, these parts. And the finish you get in this mold is what's going to be on the part. If it's shiny, you're going to get a shiny part. If you spray it, over atomize it and spray it dry, you're going to get a matte finish. But I think I got pretty good coverage. You want to hit it at different angles. You want to work around the mold, so you're getting on the side You just can't spray the PVA straight in. You've got to work it at an angle like that. Now I don't have a pin in the middle because it doesn't matter, because when I put the pin, it'll come up and I'll put the oil light bushing over the top of it, and it'll smash down in that countersunk hole right there, because that oil light bushing will go down in the mold. So if there's a little extra PVA down in a hole, it doesn't matter, just shoves it on down. Helps the release. This thing here is a mold for another little pod. It's a part I made. Little park flower. Saw it laying over there. I thought I might as well coat it up. This was made with high temp surface coat, and it's backed up with, I think it's DTO81 over the top of it, and then I fiberglassed it. Just a little clamshell mold, same kind of mold as you'd have on a wheel pant. So even though you're not making all these parts here at the same day, it helps if you can try to keep all your processes lined up to where you do the same thing. With this little mold here, it might sit there for a week or a month, and then I'll make these parts. But once I get ready to lay up the part, I don't have to worry about PVA in it. As long as you keep it in a bag or in a drawer where there's no dust, or it's not going to get nicked up, you'll be alright. Still release, you can let it sit.